How often do you think about the Oscars? About how many Oscar-winning films there are and how many you've seen? Yeah, there's a few famous Oscar-winning films that we've all seen. You know, The Godfather and Lord of the Rings and Titanic. I'm King of the World, all that stuff. But the Oscars have been running since 1927. There are currently over 1,000 films, feature-length films, which have won an Oscar. How many have you seen? I did the numbers for myself. It's not many, and I consider myself quite a movie buff. So here then is the premise of this podcast. Every episode, I and a rotating cast of 2 guests will randomly select one of the 1,000 films that have won an Oscar, watch it, and talk about it, with the only requirement being that one of the 3 people on each episode has to have never seen the movie before we talk about it. That will get difficult with Star Wars. Please note that our coverage of a movie does not constitute an endorsement of it. My least favorite movie of 2016, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, won an Oscar for Best Makeup, while my favorite movie of 2016, The Handmaiden, wasn't even nominated for anything. Please also note that our coverage of a movie is not a blanket endorsement of any or all of the people involved in it. A lot of terrible people have won Oscars. Kevin Spacey won an Oscar 20 years before he was outed as an abuser, and Roman Polanski won one 20 years after. But every film, good, bad, or in many cases mediocre, that has won an Oscar is an important part of film history just for being there. And they all, on some level, deserve a tiny bit of consideration, even if that consideration ends up concluding that it's garbage. And with all of that in mind, I am your host, as always, Ellie McConaughey, and with me today is River Lane.
Sometimes a family is a boy, his murder bot, and his gorilla-trained mother.
And Krissy.
Sometimes a family is a boy, his murder bot, and nobody else.
Aww, and in case that intro or, the title of the episode, I need to stop making that joke, didn't clue you in, we are here today to talk about Terminator 2, Judgment Day, the 1991 James Cameron film that won Best Makeup, Best Sound Effects Editing, and Best Visual Effects at the 64th Academy Awards. And I'm going to be real with both of you. I was extreme, like, when I rolled this movie up, I'm looking at it like, okay, there's a 0% chance that anyone here has not seen this movie before. But River comes through for me again.
Listen, like I was telling you before the thing, my parents are not, like, action junkie when it comes to their movies.
Fair.
And my dad is very, like, when it comes to sci-fi, he's very cerebral sci-fi. Like, he loves Blade Runner, he loves the OG Tron. Like, the OG Tron is one of his favorite movies.
Do you think I could talk your dad into watching Stellaris?
Maybe? I don't know.
Is it Solaris? It is Solaris. It is Solaris. Solaris, the Tarkovsky film.
I do not know, honestly. My dad has the absolute bug nuts, most weird movie taste. Like, sometimes I'll be, because we have like a joint Apple iTunes account for the whole family, and I like scroll through his movies, and I'm like, what compelled you to make this movie's purchase? Like, he owns the 2017 Mummy for some fucking reason. He owns the OG 99 movie, the sequel, and then the 2017 one.
I had to, like, cancel appearing on Jazz's episode of that, so, like, I never got to get my thoughts out on that movie, and it is a fascinating film. It is an utterly fascinating film. It is the nadir of, like, franchise cart before the horse filmmaking. I thought Batman v Superman was the nadir, but no, they had deeper to go.
That's fucking hilarious. But yeah, this is my first Terminator 2 rewatch. It was also my first Terminator watch because I did it as a twofer yesterday, and wild.
I knew that you were having a good time when you just messaged me in the middle of your Terminator watch. Why did no one tell me that I'll be back is the preface for Arnold driving a car through the front of a police station?
Yeah, because, like, take it from somebody who is cultural osmosis to this movie, right? Like, I know I'll Be Back. I know Hasta La Vista, Baby. I know the thumbs up while being melted in the saddest self-sacrifice scene I have seen this month. I know about, like, people's complaints about John, and I know, like, everyone's sapphic awakening in Linda Hamilton.
God damn.
And, like, so, like, when you actually, like, watch the scene in context, and it just, like, smash cuts to, like, driving a car through a building, I'm like, this is the funniest fucking scene in this fucking movie. The funniest scene in Terminator 2, however, is Arnold stepping up to Bad to the Bone after he leaves the biker bar. That is the most on-the-nose shit I have ever seen. James Cameron, what the fuck?
I actually realized the hard way with that scene that I've never heard Bad to the Bone other than the opening riff on it.
It's one of those, like, opening it is a song that is its opening riff. It's like, God, it's like the opening of a Highway to Hell. Like, I don't think in my entire life I've ever, like, chosen, hey, I have Spotify open right now, I'm gonna listen to Highway to Hell. It's just like a song that exists for really on the nose movie clips.
Step ups, yeah.
Yeah. There is a non-zero chance, you know, I've been to LA, not recently, but like I lived in LA for a couple of weeks when I was on an internship. And there is a non-zero chance that Arnold just walks into a dyke bar and spends the rest of the movie wandering around with a lesbian badge adorned jacket.
Yeah, man. Fucking my first note is, all right, we got 4 years to beat this apocalypse allegations. Can we do it?
No.
And then the literal second note is James Cameron said, what if these robots had teeth? And that is, quite frankly, horrifying, terrifying.
I like the design on the Terminator a lot. You know, I said this in a conversation with you, River, and I stand by it. I like Terminator 2 a lot. You know, hot take incoming on this rewatch: Terminator 2 still fucks.
It fucks so much that it made me mad.
It's one of those movies, and this is why I kind of like envied you watching it for the first time. And well, I shared that you were watching it with some friends of mine, and all of them agreed, like, man, I wish I could watch that movie for the first time again. It's one of those movies that you hear it fucks your entire life, and you're like, it obviously doesn't fuck. No movie that I've been told fucks like that actually fucks like that. And you watch it, and like, yeah, it fucks. Damn it.
I think what solidified it, like, solidly being like, oh man, this fucks so severely, is, again, you see clips of it, you see, like, you know, the out of context images of it or whatever. Arnold Schwarzenegger pulling a shotgun out of a box of roses as he steps on the roses to shoot the guy in the fucking head. And I'm like, this is what cinema was made for.
Honestly, like, you know, I get that James Cameron has pretty much devoted himself purely to Pandora. And also, sidebar, this is one of those things I'm going to have to say a bunch of times, I suspect, over the course of this podcast. James Cameron looms very large over the Oscars. Maybe more than any other single filmmaker, just because, you know, obviously we covered Aliens already. This won a bunch of Oscars. Obviously, Avatar movies are awash in technicals, and he directed one of the 3 most Oscar-winningest movies of all time. Tied with Ben-Hur and Return of the King, Titanic has 11 Oscars. So, like, he's a big name in Oscar movies.
I will also say, if you need someone who has never seen Titanic, I am also your NB.
I feel like, I mean, I'm not going to roll... If I roll up Titanic, I'm definitely not going to talk about it right now. I want to get some distance...
Yeah.
Emotionally from Titanic. I want to... We're not talking about Titanic. We're not talking about Titanic. I was going somewhere with that thought. No, like, I get that James Cameron is basically irretrievably lost to Pandora at this point. Like, he's made... The way he talks about making movies, the way he makes them now, he's never going to want to stop doing that. But man, he lost something to me when he started just being Mr. CGI all the time. Like, the scene in this movie where they fucking fly a helicopter under a bridge, and they just fucking did that.
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah. The way that like ILM was like 6 guys before this, and they're like, shit, we need more artists to figure out how to make this fucking work. But like, to be an audience member in 1991, 92,
91.
91, and having seen the first movie, and the minute Arnold steps on screen, and you're like, oh fuck, are we really doing this again?
I mean, like, so I made the point to you that this is actually where I was originally going this before I got completely sidetracked. Krissy, since this is your first episode, I will tell you that this podcast is Sidetrack City.
Oh, fantastic.
We are Tangent Town.
We are Tangent Town. I have very bad ADHD, as do most of the guests, so we have trouble keeping to a topic for more than 2 minutes. Anyway, that Terminator 1 is my favorite of the franchise. They've certainly made some other movies since Terminator 2. This ends the sentence. But more to the point, I like Terminator 1 is grimier, it's nastier, it's meaner, but it's also like, it's basically a slasher movie.
Yeah. The first Terminator is basically foot to the gas, pedal to the metal, stopping briefly to have sex to ensure the creation of the leader of the rebellion so that you can send your dad back in time to make love to your mind. Anyway, if I think about the time travel mechanics too much, my head will explode, but that's neither here nor there.
I mean, like, that's neither here nor there, but that's more or less what happened to the Terminator franchise. They got too into thinking about the time travel mechanics, and their heads exploded.
Yeah, and so like the first one is so pedal to the metal, and like the fact that the climax is basically no wait he's up again for like the entire thing.
I think the Terminator is an incredibly on the nose designed creature. I don't think that if it looked like that the entire time, it would be an effective slasher movie. Which is one of the reasons why I think all of their attempts at future movies have kind of sucked, because, like...
No, you gotta put the human skin on it. You gotta make it bleed. You gotta give the illusion that if it bleeds, it can die. And then it turns out, no.
Well, that's part of it, but also, like, the design works in short bursts. Just the metal skeleton, literally skeleton, it is... I mean, like, you make that thing bone colored and it'll fit an army of darkness. Like, that thing looks goofy. But, you know, when it has, like, you mentioned this, when it has, like, bits of the skeleton appearing from under the skin, that shit fucks.
It's such a design choice. And I think the other thing that, like, stood out to me about 1 is that, like, traditionally into the sci-fi genre, or in the, like, you know, a stereotypical female gets wrapped for one of these days. So someone's probably written this dissertation, but someone investigate the dissertation about James Cameron and his female characters. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. But like the idea that, like, you know, traditionally Sarah's role would be that, like, she's, you know, a nurse, or she's, like, you know, higher up in the socioeconomic 80s food chain. But nah, man, she's a waiter with a roommate trying to make ends meet who owns a lizard and is trying to, like, she just wanted one night to kind of see the guy she was dating, and ended up in a robot murder movie.
And the worst weekend of her life.
And the worst 48 hours of her life. Sarah Connor, the no good, horrible, very bad 48 hours.
I mean, like, I say the worst weekend of your life, given the events of the second movie, the worst weekend of your life so far.
Yeah, that's quite literally my Letterboxd review. The worst weekend of the worst 48 hours of her life so far. But Terminator 2 is really more John Connor's worst 48 hours of his life so far.
So I'm actually curious for both of you, because, like, Krissy, when did you see this movie for the first time?
Well, a couple hours ago.
Oh my god, I have 2 first-timers, hell yes! So what did you think of John Connor in this movie?
I thought he was an asshole in the good ways.
Okay.
I like the part where he almost had the Terminator murder 2 men. For no real reason.
See, I didn't see it till I was in high school, and, like, part of the problem, I have this consistent problem with Terminator 2, which is that, like, half the time it is basically like Terminator 1, you know, a fairly grimy, pedal to the metal action movie, and then the other half of the time it's like E.T., but if E.T. was a murder bot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Do I make sense when I say that? Okay.
Yeah, no, but like my thinking with John is, number one, childhood me would have been in shambles.
Fair.
Number two, anytime I got annoyed with John, I remembered he's 10 and he's being actively hunted by murder robots. And his mom was gun running through all of his childhood and has probably gone, like, literally gone insane. Like, yes, Sarah Connor is right, but she's also insane about it. Shout out to Linda Hamilton for making that decision. Incredible content.
That's what actually fascinates me about Linda Hamilton, about Sarah Connor in this movie, who, yes, is a sapphic awakening and a half for so many people.
That black tank top.
Arms. This
Arms.
concludes Ellie's review. Arms. No, it's like one of the things that I like about the movie, and I didn't really like vibe with this as a teenager, because I first saw this in high school because, like, you know, being forced to socialize as a guy, you know, that was fun. That was we're not going into my childhood. Is one of the things that sort of like struck me is that, you know, you don't like that Sarah is treated as crazy, but like I like that she is correct in that the robots are in fact coming to kill you all. There is in fact a murder bot from the future here, 2 murder bots from the future here, in fact, and the tech company is covering it up. But also, like, she is genuinely kind of fucking crazy in this movie.
Yeah. Like, at one point, like, she's chastising John about, like, coming after her in the facility, and I'm sitting there going, Sarah, he's 10!
Mm-hmm. No, but it's like, it's so interesting to me because I feel like the way John Connor is written, I feel like he's written as a fairly believable 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, I've made this point on a couple of other occasions that I really often hate movie kids, where they're either, like, perfect angelic beings of wisdom and light, or, like, tiny adults, which is not my experience of having to deal with children at all.
No.
So I feel like John Connor is, like, I taught first, second, and third grade for a while. I knew kids who were basically on their way to growing up to be John Connor when they were 10.
You mean being in a really bad fourth movie?
Yes. Played by Christian Bale. Many of them were growing. You know, when you're a kid, you have to, and you're a boy, you have to decide which Christian Bale you want to grow up to be. Don't trust the ones who choose American Psycho, Christian Bale.
I grew up to be a Christian Slater.
Doing absolutely out-of-pocket kids' voices in kids' cartoons?
Yes.
Valid.
Hold on, I need to find a. I don't know if I can actually find a person. I don't know. I was gonna try to find a celebrity with a last name Christian who's a woman who's like, I grew up to be a whatever Christian. Now I'm completely off topic.
I grew up to be a Christian.
I did not actually.
But like John is a perpetual 10-year-old. First of all, his experimentation with the murder bot, top tier 10-year-old behavior.
Right. I think he's a believable 10-year-old. And, like, part of me almost feels like that was designed to, like, bring in a kid audience, because teenagers, by and large, get kind of irritated by John Connor because it reminds them of themselves, like, 5 years ago. But, like, how are you going to get in the kids' audience for an R-rated movie, James?
Especially back when R meant kind of something.
I've made this point on a couple of occasions, you know, like, MPAA rating does not mean audience. Like, Deadpool and Wolverine is an R-rated movie. It is a movie for 14-year-olds. Conclave is a PG-rated movie. It is a movie for adults. Like, that does not correlate 1-to-1. But R rating does mean that it's not for children, not for 10-year-olds. You cannot take a 10-year-old responsibly to an R-rated film. And it's not like a soft R either. People get that scene where John Connor's step-parents get killed, or foster parents, is pretty fucking rough.
Yeah, that fucking knife through the mouth fucked me up severely. And I think that's the other thing about, like, John's, like, reaction, like, when Sarah's, like, chastising him for, like, coming after her. I'm like, hey, man, he's never going to tell you this, but he lost his foster parents like 10 minutes ago, and even though he doesn't like them,
they were still his foster parents.
Yeah, like, congratulations, you have gone back to being the only adult in this child's life who isn't a murder robot. The other thing that was really exciting for me as like a first-time viewer and having done the first one back-to-back with the second one is, first of all, I got to notice the parallel intro of how they introduced the Terminator and Kyle in the first one versus how they did it with the Terminator Part 1 and Terminator Part 2 in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that I was like, okay, so yeah, we're doing Arnold again. How are we gonna handle Sarah's reaction? Because the last time she saw an Arnold-shaped Terminator, it was trying to kill her. And her realistic reaction of screaming and running the fuck away, top tier good shit. There is still a part of her that is 18 years old and afraid that thing didn't fucking die.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just never got this with the Terminator movies. Because obviously it's set up in the first movie that they're supposed to be like infiltrator robots to sneak into the rebellion and kill key members.
Mm-hmm.
But they reused the same face of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a pretty recognizable guy. It's not much of an infiltrator if you just go in with the same guy.
Yeah, that seems like poor planning on Future John's part. But it is stated that like John grabbed one and reprogrammed it, and that's why it's the Arnold robot.
No, I agree, but I guess I don't agree. You're correct, but why did they have multiple of the same guy?
Yeah,
all of these are kind of like hand wavy for like. Look, I mean, like if you look at that Terminator exoskeleton, like what else are you gonna fit over that? Like, you're not. I mean, what you're gonna get the female version? It's Katie O'Brien.
Yeah.
Ellie, that cannot be. Remember, we've already discussed that the Terminators are loaded, but they are not loaded. You cannot fuck the Katie O'Brien Terminator.
If you watch
You can try.
Krissy understands me. If you watch the HD, the Blu-ray of Terminator 1, you can in fact see Arnold hanging brain in that movie. So they are loaded. And also it would make sense if they were like infiltrator bots. You know, you don't want to be, okay, we're infiltrating this base. Well, they make everyone drop their pants on their way in. Oh, you're a Barbie doll? Okay.
I do think, however, if you're gonna fuck the Katie O'Brien Terminator, that would be a good instance of to shreds, you say. But we're gonna go off topic.
Do not fist the robots. We're not. We are. All of this is like kind of much like the fact that they're naked when they arrive. Which, by the way, I did notice on this watch that like I wanted to try to get in the headspace of someone who had seen Terminator 1, but like obviously hadn't seen Terminator 2 yet. And like, is it possible that a new audience could mistake Robert Patrick, the T-1000, for being the new Kyle character? Like, that you could think he's the hero at first?
So part of this is because like cultural osmosis is a hell of a drug. I knew that the Robert Patrick thing was coming.
It is.
First of all, shout out to him. Fucking terrifying.
So my most recent exposure to Robert Patrick, aside from this movie, is when I was doing my X-Files reviews. When the world was young, he takes over for Mulder in seasons 8 and 9, and like I always felt very bad for him because like I think Robert Patrick is actually a fairly talented actor. He's very good here. He's very good in Peacemaker. They're still writing him for Mulder for most of those seasons. Witty banter is not a card in his deck.
No, he strikes me very much as an actor who's good at like this sort of dry wit where you cannot tell if they're joking until it's too late.
That's basically what he's doing in Peacemaker, yeah.
Yeah, but his whole vibe of like the shark in a crowd of people is top tier good shit.
He runs very good in this movie too.
But yeah, I think for me it was a case of like cultural osmosis being what it is. I knew that he was the actual bad guy here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other thing that, like, really sort of set me up is he goes after a cop's uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. Like, Kyle steals his clothes off a homeless guy, which is less than ideal. But
it is. I mean, like my point about the naked thing is that like that is fairly obviously just kind of a hand wave to give an excuse. Like, okay, James Cameron's sitting there writing his movie. Okay, how do I get it so that they don't just have future weapons? Okay, only skin can go through it. That's why the Terminator also has to look human. Why you can't send like a big bomb. So you send a big bomb covered in skin. There's a terrifying thought. We're ignoring that.
Yeah, don't give the DoD ideas.
And like that's so like the idea the fact that they're naked is just literally just like, okay, I don't want to have them carrying around stupid sci-fi shit the whole time. Here is my hand wave for why they don't have that. It's fine. It's fine. And so like the Arnold, like they barely bother to justify why he looks like Arnold in this movie. It's one of those things. It's like, well, we wanted to hire Arnold again, so he looks like Arnold because we wanted Arnold. Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably one of those things that doesn't make total sense, but also I don't.
Yeah, I'm not gonna think about it too hard. Besides, the idea of Arnold Schwarzenegger murderbot having to end up in a weird, horrifying co-parenting situation is fucking funny. Actually, this movie is a road trip movie with more murder.
You can actually kind of like track the history of Arnold Schwarzenegger's career through these movies. You know, in the first one, he's still an up and comer, so he's playing the villain. This one, he was one of the biggest stars alive, so now he's the hero. In the third one, he kind of becomes self parody, so there sure is a third one. And now he's just like a cameo. You do not need to watch the third one, or the fourth one, or the fifth one, or the sixth one.
Yeah, speaking of the multiple sequel conundrum, so in today's horror of streaming television and media and whatever else, I thankfully was able to find both of these movies legally. I found the first one on HBO Max. The second one is on Paramount Plus. As is, I think, the sixth one? Whatever the fuck Dark Genesis is.
There is Terminator Genesis and there is Terminator Dark Fate.
I don't know. I think both of them might be there. But the point still stands. Is like, why the fuck am I on two different streaming services for this single fucking series?
Much like how, you know, this movie has two things in common with the Halloween franchise. One, every time they make a new one, they're like, no, we're taking it back to the last one that was actually any good. We're not following up the bad ones. We're just doing something that's a sequel to the first one or two. And also, I think someone tracked that you'd have to have like 4 streaming services if you wanted to watch the whole Halloween franchise.
Sounds about right, yeah.
I actually have good news.
Go ahead.
Dark Fate isn't on a streaming service. You can only rent it.
God. Perfect. As God intended.
Perfect. Amazing. I watched this on Paramount Plus. The Ellie who would own this movie on Blu-ray is not really the Ellie who exists anymore. Although I like this movie. You know, it still fucks, but I don't own it on Blu-ray.
I just don't have a DVD player anymore. My apartment came with cable, and that's about it.
When is your birthday?
Me?
I will get you a DVD player, River.
June 12th.
Although I'm gonna have to buy it in Canada and have it shipped to you from Canada, because like...
Yeah. Times being what they are.
Anyway,
I hate the infiltration in the floor. I hate it. How do I uninstall it?
I do like that he's just a puddle.
He's just a puddle. I was actually very curious, since this is the first time for both of you. How do you feel about the T-1000's effects?
I made jokes about him being the Silver Surfer the whole time.
Fair.
I think that they fascinate me, and I think they're very well done for the time. I think what saves them mostly is that they are not used a lot. Like, and even the parts that like are used, like it's like the coming up through the floor looks a little goofy, but I don't even think I would know how to do that in today's like level of CGI and not make that look goofy. You know?
I mean, it looks a little goofy, and the reason I ask is because one of its Oscars is Best Visual Effects, which it beat Backdraft and Hook for. Okay.
I mean, I guess Hook's flying scenes might be pretty solid. I haven't seen Hook.
It's it's just kind of like interesting to me because, like, you know, for context, 1991, we were still 2 years out from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And so, like, this was I do know, like, I was a year old when this came out. I obviously didn't see it in theaters, but like I did know, even as a kid, this was like incredibly cutting edge technology right here.
Yeah. Like I said, the ILM team went from like 6 artists to 35 just to get this like this movie done, and it's like 2 minutes of footage in total or something like that.
Yeah, but it would take like days to render each like minute.
Yeah. I think because like the thing is that I think it's like a lot of it is a case of like they went practical when they could, which is, you know, we love a practical here.
And that's why it also won Best Makeup.
Yeah. And when in doubt, get a twin. Even though Linda Hamilton's twin is not in the version I watched, when in doubt, get a twin.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite like gag in terms of like the T-1000 doing fucky wucky bullshit with its body TM is when it does its horror movie phase through the gate and the gun gets jammed.
Mm-hmm.
Because it forgot it couldn't phase the gun.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. That's a good little thing. And I don't know whose decision it was, but it's a good little move, you know? And the knife arms did worry me a little bit, but mostly they just reminded me that episode of Torchwood, Sleeper, where it turns out a bunch of alien sleeper agents have been disguised as humans, and then all of a sudden this one woman gets activated, but she doesn't quite know why, and ends up murdering her husband. I have so many thoughts about that episode, but that's not what this podcast is about.
It is not. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, don't ask me my opinions about Torchwood. I will be here all day. But like, yeah, but like the thing is that like for me, it's just like, oh shit, this thing has knife hands. That's sick as fuck. I do also like the casual exposition dump of here's what it can do, here's what it can't do.
I mean, I think that like as an antagonist, the T-1000 is a really interesting. It is like part of what kind of like always frustrates me about a lot of sci-fi and horror media is like, and fantasy does this too, but not often as much. Their solution to making the bad guy a threat is they're invincible until they're not.
Yeah.
You know, what, like I can't think of a good example right now, but like part of what I like about this is like the T-1000 has a very rigid set of strengths and weaknesses, and I think the movie uses them extremely well.
Yeah.
And I also think that Robert Patrick is very good at embodying the sort of like this sort of relentless drive to hunt down this 10-year-old child. Also, people everywhere, I don't want to like give you advice that you will take out into the world too often, but do remember, humanity in this movie is saved because John Connor's friend instinctively lied to a cop.
Correct.
It's true, I did that once and it worked. I saved humanity.
Krissy is out here saving humanity by lying to cops.
The first movie is the cops cannot save you. This movie is the cops will hunt you down and kill you if they have like a glimmer of a reason.
It's very interesting to me that like James Cameron is this incredibly big filmmaker, and like the traditional avenues of masculine power structure, the police, the military, the secret agents are in his movies either the wealthy are either completely incompetent or actively hostile to the heroes.
Or sometimes both.
And I find that like super interesting. It does get extremely awkward when it's happening with Avatar.
Avatar is absolutely insane. And we will get to it when we get to it.
We will get to Avatar when we get to it, but I do have to say, James Cameron, if you're listening, one, why? Like, don't you have better stuff to do? But second, James, I know that you love Kate Winslet. I love Kate Winslet too, but you cannot have her be doing the Maori haka just because she's in in Avatar CGI. You gotta hire a Maori actor. I'm sorry, James. I know you love Kate Winslet. It doesn't make it okay. You can't have her doing that.
Jesus Christ. I'm so glad I have avoided the second movie.
A lot of the second movie, a lot of my problem with the second movie comes down to the entire movie being that one comic, you can't be talking like that, white baby.
So I'd say what she. So my back to the absolute shenaniganery of sending your father back to the past to fuck your mom so that you exist. God, what a trip that must have been, John.
There is a lot wrong with basically all of the sequels. James Cameron did them as his second and fourth movies. No, James Cameron, I will not let people forget Piranha 2: The Spawning. Enjoy and live with that. I will remind everyone that your first movie was Piranha 2: The Spawning for the rest of your life. But then he fucked off and they basically just started turning it into a franchise movie. And one of the few things that I did like about the fourth one, which is set during the Machine War, is they did kind of acknowledge, hey man, being groomed from childhood to do this and also to send his father back in time to fuck his mom, John Connor's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
He's fucked in the head.
Yeah, no, and my other thing about I don't love the romance in one at all. As the canonical straight analyzer, Kyle, calm the fuck down for 10 minutes. I understand you are under duress, but this bitch does not know what the fuck is going on. Kyle, calm the fuck down, and maybe, just maybe, your crazy ramblings will go over a smidgen better.
Kyle in the first movie is very much an embodiment of the movie's breakneck pace, and that is, unfortunately, his approach to romance as well.
Yeah.
I like the alternate cut of the movie where he actually totally misread the situation, and he was never the father.
But the whole the thing about the second movie is, or the thing about the first movie is, I was just like, what in the Jesus Christ? But for this movie, you have to pretend that relationship meant something, to buy into the semi-emotional stakes of this here movie. You have to pretend that meant something. At least it meant something to fictional character Sarah Connor. So I cannot justify it in my own head. I'm going to say, doylistically, it's a James wanted to do a callback to the first one. Watsonianly, I'm going to pretend that John had the knowledge that "come with me if you want to live" was the first thing his dad said to his mom. Because if ever there was going to be an act of trust to this Sarah, who is absolutely fucked in the head, medicated to high heaven, just held 5 people hostage, is having a on-set panic attack about her son rocking up with the guy who tried to kill her 10 years ago. Having that robot say, "come with me if you want to live," is enough of an olive branch that I would buy Sarah calming down 10 seconds, because she's like, okay, maybe there is something going on here, and that is enough for John to cut in and be the actual anchor and clear things up.
I mean, so the Terminator and Sarah's relationship is really interesting in this movie. Again, I kind of I'm gonna be kind of mean to John Connor. I don't like the E.T. angle totally. I don't think it 100% works. I think that they should have either aged John down to be an actual literal baby, and it's the Terminator protecting Sarah, which is, that's kind of what they did in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, just another aspect of this fucking franchise. Krissy, you talk for a bit. I don't want to think about Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Isn't that a Doctor Who series?
Is it?
The Sarah Connor Adventures?
Sarah Jane Adventures.
I'm going to be real with you. You both brought up Torchwood. I've never watched anything Doctor Who.
Smart.
I liked Torchwood. It was a good series when I watched it.
Torchwood
Well, I shouldn't.
is an edgy, cynical aughts sci-fi program that occasionally has very good sci-fi ideas,
Yeah.
but is so like layered in early aughts like cynicism and edgy endings. Basically, if I recommend Torchwood if you like no-win scenarios, major character death, and our heroes just never getting a fucking win ever.
I like Torchwood, but I'd only recommend like 2 or 3 episodes of it. Most of it's not good.
I'm writing that down.
I will also say Torchwood can be perceived as a queer Trojan horse,
Oh, absolutely.
in that it presents itself as all of the characters are straight, and then it turns out no, pretty much everyone can be read as bi.
Well, it is a show of Captain Jack, and I don't think it can be any other way.
Pretty much, yeah.
There you go.
But anyway,
Hit that name I know, because I was on Tumblr in the 2010s.
yeah.
God, I'm so fucking old. Speaking of gayness, how do we feel about Sarah Connor in this movie?
I think she's absolutely fucking insane. I mean that mostly as a compliment in the I support women's wrongs, but also, Jesus Christ, Sarah, what the fuck?
Krissy, any thoughts, comments, criticisms?
I didn't know that they could do that in the 90s.
Do what?
Write good female characters.
Arguably, they used to be better at it.
Really?
Only arguably.
I guess, no, you're right. I mean, the only other really real good instance of this I can think of is just the original Alien.
Yeah, there was like a hot minute in the late 80s, early 90s where like they actually did have some reasonably well-written lady characters. My namesake from Jurassic Park, which I referenced a little bit ago, is another good example. Even if the movie is politely not mentioning that she's like 15 years younger than Sam Neill. But it's Laura Dern, so we forgive her.
Yeah.
We forgive everything for Laura Dern.
Truly.
It's so interesting because like this is gonna be a pretty painful comparison, but like so James Cameron, we're talking about Doctor Who. James Cameron always feels like he's on the edge of wandering into that like Stephen Moffat, Joss Whedon style of course I'm a feminist. I like a woman who can kick my ass shit, which is
Ugh.
But like I feel like he handles it a little bit better just because I feel like he's a better writer than either of those two people.
Well, as one Letterboxd user put it, and I kind of agree with them, James Cameron writes dialogue like he's never heard a person speak before in his life.
Which is like and that's not wrong, but like
it's more egregious in the first one.
But you know, like another really good example of that is Wes Anderson. We all fucking love Wes Anderson. He writes dialogue like he's never heard a person speak.
Yeah.
Or fucking Tarantino. No one actually speaks like the way Tarantino writes, but like it's fine. We forgive him.
I think the difference is like there's more of a rhythm in Wes and like to give Tarantino a penny of a credit, which I don't want to do because fuck that.
He is very much in the list of course I'm a feminist. I like women who kick my ass.
Yeah, but both of them are really good at dialogue with a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wes Anderson's dialogue does sound like he's never heard anyone spoken before in his life. But you think like a scene like the acting scene in Asteroid City,
mm-hmm.
or any of the exchanges between Gustav and Zero in Grand Budapest Hotel, or even like a lot of the scenes in Royal Tenenbaums, the way they're shot and the way that like these characters interact with each other, there is a rhythm of a connected history.
Mm-hmm.
And for this one, you kind of forgive it more because like Sarah and John are estranged, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is a murder robot that doesn't understand human emotion or the capacity to speak. And can you learn to say stuff? Can you learn stuff you're not programmed with? Like, you know, so you're not a dork all the time.
He does know catchphrases though.
Yeah.
He learns that very quickly.
Yeah. So like those are the sort of like for this movie it is less noticeable. But in the first movie where like Sarah has to try and explain what the fuck is going on with her to Kyle, and like every part of like her and Kyle's exchange doesn't work. because they never hit they never get enough time to hit a rhythm with it. You get like glimpses of it here and there, like the scene where Kyle brings back all of the ingredients to make pipe bombs. And he's like, I learned how to make them as a kid. And she's like, it sounds like one hell of a childhood, you know?
Mm-hmm. I will say that, like, it's possible that part of what makes James Cameron a lot more forgivable is he was a lot more interested in, like, actually launching other lady filmmakers. He very famously launched the career of his ex-wife, Catherine Bigelow.
God, Point Break.
Directly after this, he would produce Strange Days, which is her best movie. I think it's probably one of the best films of the 90s. If you're going to watch it, go look up a list of trigger warnings. It's got a lot.
I mean, the Catherine Bigelow of choice for me is Point Break.
I like Point Break a lot. It is better than Point Break.
Point Break would have made me realize I was bi sooner, but that's neither here nor there.
Fair. But, like, I don't know, like, I can't really explain what it is that separates a James Cameron from a, say, Joss Whedon, except that I feel like his camera work is a lot less fetishistic.
It is not. It is very not fetishistic. I think the other thing is that, like, I have never gotten the impression that Joss and or Quentin Tarantino are good collaborators with their female actors. But and so, like, the thing about the IMDb trivia page is, like, you know, when Linda Hamilton read this and she's like, no, if I'm gonna do this, I want Sarah to be fucking crazy. He said, fucking yeah, man, let's do it. And I think that's never something you're gonna get out of a Joss or a Tarantino. They are both too much of a control freak, let alone their misogynistic tendencies, to get something like that.
The interesting thing about that is, like, there's a particular brand of movie that I've really kind of come to despise, which I use Kill Bill as my example of, because if you take the meta text of Kill Bill, which I do because I'm pretentious like that. Yeah, Krissy, I probably should have warned you before you hopped on this episode or on the podcast for the first time. I'm insane.
Tisk tisk.
We're insane in different directions.
I bet you didn't even like Rise of Skywalker. Sorry.
I did not. I'm sorry to say.
Tisk tisk.
If we look at the meta text of Kill Bill, the meta text of Kill Bill is like, Uma Thurman needs to get the fuck away from me, Quentin Tarantino, because I am dangerous to her. And, like, that is the meta text of a lot of people's movies, or, like, self-critical, you know, meta text is very common among certain kinds of director. Lars von Trier does it in The House That Jack Built, which is a movie that I despise. What's his name? Aronofsky does it in Mother. And every time they do it, I'm just sitting there going, like, okay, so you are self-aware enough to realize this is a problem. You can just stop, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it's really shit to watch Lars von Trier spend 2 hours saying, I use and abuse people for cheap shock value in my movies. Isn't that awful? In a movie in which people are used and abused for cheap shock value. I'm like, you can just stop, Lars.
Yeah.
You are the master of your fate. And, like, so James Cameron doesn't feel like, I've never felt like he could reasonably make a movie like that. And you can see that in that, you know, Sigourney Weaver has been working with him pretty consistently for, fuck me, like 40 years at this point, and she's still coming back.
Yeah. And like the thing about slightly on topic, slightly off topic. I think the other thing about
We have a topic?
I think the other thing about Sarah Connors is that, like, when we say the camera isn't fetishistic, neither is the costuming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does Linda Hamilton look great in a fucking black tank top and army gear? Yes, absolutely. But also, at least 2 out of the 3 of us are sapphic in some flavor.
Well, that's sort of the thing. Like, I think that, you know, the way a movie is shot for the male gaze is extremely different. Were you on Sam's Love Lies Bleeding episode, River?
No.
Have you seen Love Lies Bleeding?
I have not.
Okay, so I'm going to use that as my example because that's, like, unfortunately the best one I have. You can very much tell that while this movie is about attractive women, or women that I find unspeakably attractive, it was not shot with the male gaze because what the camera chooses to focus on and how it chooses to focus on it is not what like a male gazy film tends to do. And like that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. You know, The Handmaiden is a very male gazy film, or at least in what it chooses to focus on. The Handmaiden's a great film.
Yeah, it's my equal and opposite example is, have you seen Fish Tank?
I've not seen Fish Tank now.
Don't see Fish Tank. It's a weird bad movie.
But I like weird bad movies.
If I had a nickel for every time Michael Fassbender played a character who ended up in a, at first, turned down relationship with a person perceived to be his younger, and then ended up in a relationship with said younger, and it ended up going horribly for everyone involved, I've had 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Fish Tank is about like a young British girl's coming of age, and the introduction of Michael Fassbender's character to the movie as like mom's new boyfriend or whatever. It's shot very much as like how a 15-year-old with an unstable relationship with her mother, who is just being introduced to a man who looks like young Michael Fassbender in just jeans, would like both size him up as a potential threat, but also size him up as a item of like attractiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that is my like go-to example of like what it means to like, yeah, leer at a guy from the perspective of a woman who's leering at him, because the way that like the camera focuses on parts of the body that like to a mass camera person or to a mass director don't mean anything. Or, you know, to borrow Dan Olsen's example from the 50 Shades movies, you know, the difference between movie 1 and Sam Taylor Johnson's portrayal of Jamie Dornan's Christian Grey versus movie 3 and the fucking asshole director's, he's not an asshole, I don't think, portrayal of Christian Grey. You know, the difference between like this man is coming to fuck you and this guy's getting buff, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's and I'm not going to say that the camera doesn't find Linda Hamilton attractive, but it's not like leering at her.
No.
Which is very different.
It's far more often using her as a item of terror.
Right. I was actually about to go into talking about
the siege on Miles's house,
which is like she is genuinely scary in that scene, but also like, look, I don't want to say I don't know Dyson. I'm sure he's a nice guy. In 2025, I'm like, no, yeah, you can kill tech CEOs. It's fine.
My thing with Dyson is I had 3 reactions to that whole scene. Number 1, that house is so set dressed as like 90s nouveau riche in like every single, like that house looks like it was also the set for like 3 different cop shows that had like nouveau riche victims of the week or whatever.
Probably was.
Because they all have that same like white, sterile, like glass everything, I don't know how you're raising a child in this home sort of vibe.
Well, he's not anymore.
Yeah.
He eats shit rather spectacularly in this movie.
Yeah, truly. Number 2, my note on that whole exchange is, I mean, you're the one who chose to invent based around mystery tech you were told not to ask questions about.
I feel like the film is a little too... part of the problem with it is just straightforwardly that, you know, much like how Aliens is a good film but introduced some very bad long-term habits to the Alien franchise, Terminator 2 is a good film, but it sanded down an element of just like mean-spirited nastiness that I feel like really helped the franchise on its journey to become a more generic action movie. And like part of that is just straightforwardly that you know, the movie is way too in love with not killing people who might have it coming. Like, I'm sorry, if killing Miles is going to prevent nuclear Armageddon, I'm not convinced that's a negative thing to do. I'm not convinced that... I understand that she's going about it in a deeply unhinged way, but like, is she wrong? But I understand why John doesn't want her to do it, because he's not going to consider philosophical moral issues. He's 10.
He's 10 and has a murder robot.
No, he is a specifically not murder robot. He was promised not to murder people.
Yeah.
You know what? This movie would have been so much more reasonable if he was 11 with a murder robot.
Exactly.
But I think it also, like, going into the final fucking sequence, it ends up with, like, John the Terminator and Sarah end up this weird trifecta of the Terminator as the brawn, Sarah as the brains, and John as the heart, which is like hilarious for the last act of an action movie, but like is such a weird dynamic to basically build your film around.
As I said, like the relationship between Sarah and the Terminator is interesting. I like that she like locates him as a potential father figure, which Sarah, speaking of certain kind of bars that Arnold could have walked into, that's where you should be looking for your father figure in that tank top. You will be the most popular girl at the ball there.
Yeah, I think that, like, you know, that is the one thing that kind of like irked me about this movie. I didn't love Sarah's narration. I would have been fine with the one at the beginning and the one at the end. The handful in the middle kind of irked me, but it was not enough for me to be like annoyed by it. But I was just like, I don't need this.
It's interesting because, like, okay, the one at the beginning is exposition. It is just like, we could do this more elegantly, but this movie's already 2 hours and 15 minutes long. Let's get it fucking going.
Yeah, this is the, like, here's why we're doing the plot again.
The second one, the one at the end, is the sort of like philosophical statement of the film, because
we've technically fucked up what was going to happen, and so we don't want to confirm or deny what the hell is going to happen going forward. And we told the producers to suck it about giving it a happy ending.
But also, James Cameron has heard writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
That too.
Very direct writer, Mr. Cameron. And, like, I guess the voiceover over the conversation with Miles is, like, papering over exposition. Because, like, they don't want to sit us down and watch the Terminator explain the war to him.
Yeah.
But then they, like, do, like, 2 minutes of narration right in the middle, which is very odd.
Yeah, it's very, very bizarre. And I think if they had framed it, if they'd put like half a framing device in of like Sarah's tapes from the first movie still being around, I would have bought it a little. Like, I would have given it a little bit more leeway. Like, if John mentioned, like, yeah, she gave me all these tapes, and like I've heard some of them, and like, you know, I've got like the next few on me or whatever. Like, if that had been the explanation as to why they are happening, whatever, fine, that's kitschy, but I'll deal with it. That would fall under James Cameron has a very specific flavor of rule of cool for himself, and that flavor of rule of cool includes, but is not limited to, shotguns in boxes of roses, flying a helicopter under a thing, and several instances of cool guys don't look at explosions.
It's an explosion-heavy movie.
It's a very explosion-heavy movie. The one big explosion at the end, fucked.
I do have to say, he wasn't really a cool guy. He was a cool robot.
Yeah.
How does gender work with robots?
We can't contemplate robot gender. We can't contemplate robot gender.
Is the Terminator a guy? The greatest thread in the history of internet forums, locked after 10,000 pages of heated debate. This is to do a callback to our Toy Story 4 episode. This is why I say that Wall-E is a butch lesbian. Either gender doesn't exist with robots, or if it does, then we get to assign that gender, and I'm assigning woman to Wall-E. You can't stop me.
I mean, considering that Wall-E is my mom's favorite Pixar, and my mom heavily prescribes to Wall-E, and she thinks my dad is Eve.
Yeah, that's my favorite Pixar movie too.
Wild. I do love that the climax is going on, and you think it's just going to be a cop showdown, and then the T-1000 rocks up on his little motorcycle, and I was literally like, and showing up 15 minutes late with Starbucks!
The T-1000 is not in the movie for a very long chunk of the middle.
Yeah, because we fuck off to Nicaragua, or like we fuck off to like near the border until we decide to go back and fucking kill Miles.
And shoot a man in the head.
Yeah. The scene of the helicopter flying under the bridge, my note for that is literally, what the fuck is this movie?
I mean, like, you know, part of what makes James Cameron a good director is, like, sometimes he will just do stuff just because it fucks. Like, the nuking LA scene is, from a story structure standpoint, pretty superfluous. Its literal only purpose for what is almost certainly an extremely expensive sequence is to establish why Sarah decides, you know what, I am perfectly willing to go murder a man in cold blood today.
Yeah, so when Sarah starts talking about, like, the visions of, like, and this was something that kind of, like, confused me about the first one, too, but I was willing to, like, pass it off in the first one as sort of a, like, yeah, you know, Kyle just didn't shut up after she fell asleep or whatever, and, like, we paid all this money for all these extras to do this fucking fucked up future world, we might as well get some use out of these sets or whatever. When did we decide that Sarah got prophecy visions? Because a lot of the things that she was describing, it's like it kind of blurs this line of, like, shit she might have interpreted based on what Kyle told her in the first one, versus, like, shit that she might have interpolated based on, like, what she's come to know in the intervening years, so to speak. But, like, some of it, I'm just sitting there going, like, did you get prophecy while I wasn't looking? Did we add that while I wasn't looking?
I think the implication is, since if you're paying attention, it is very much a blink and you'll miss it. So I don't blame anyone for missing this. Is that one of the women she sees in the vision is her? It's kind of like very much just her being a little crack.
Yeah. God, I love that she's insane in this one, actually.
I love that she's insane too. The franchise as a whole is gearing up to do her dirty over and over and over and over and over again for the rest of the franchise. I guess I mean, like, I wanted to chat a little bit about the future of the franchise from here on out, because none of the other movies have won anything because
they're bad.
Well, that doesn't stop a movie from winning an Oscar, but they're also just not, like,
interesting.
It's worse than they're not interesting. Like, you know, this one has groundbreaking effects and really good makeup. The Terminator 3 has Arnold fight a woman in a bathroom.
Woof.
What do you mean? I think that's about equal.
God damn it. Have you seen any of the other Terminators, Krissy?
I have not. I was gonna binge all of them a while ago, but I only ended up watching the first one.
Wise. They're a fascinating series of weird, bad decisions. About the only interesting thing any of them did is the most recent one combined Kyle and the Terminator into one character. Like,
how?
So the robots are loaded?
No, it's like the person who is sent back in time to protect the girl who falls in love with her is
the character
the person who sent back in time is a robot, but it's also partially a person, and also, like, they don't actually let Mackenzie Davis fuck that woman, but they should. That movie is deeply boring,
and it doesn't even have robot fucking.
She is, like, part of what makes it frustrating is, like, it's very clear that at some point in the plot that was on the table, that Mackenzie Davis was gonna fuck that woman, and, like, it's like the movie is edging you the entire time.
So how I feel about fucking Run Lola Run.
Exactly. Every so often you're like, you can fuck that woman. It's an R-rated movie. Kids are not they can't even be like corrupting our kids. This is an R-rated movie, and then they just don't. I guess they also brought back Edward Furlong for the first time in the third one. Poor Edward Furlong.
Truly.
I would like to say I'm occasionally a little bit mean to John Connor. None of that applies to Edward Furlong. We as a society need to learn to be less fucking insane to child actors.
Please, God. Who needs special effects when you have twins? And hey Google, why am I crying about a robot self-sacrifice?
I mean, like, you hear the scene, you, like, have it in context. Like, he's gonna get lowered into the fucking molten metal, and he's gonna give a thumbs up. Okay, man. Then you watch it like, fuck.
It's because John doesn't want his robot to go.
The T-1000's death scene in that metal is pretty fucking rad.
Oh, it's so fucking cool. I literally went insane behavior, James Cameron. What the fuck?
Maybe that's what actually, like, separates the the first two from the rest of them, you know, like, not just that they're incredibly blunt on the nose. For example, did anyone notice what game John Connor is playing in the arcade?
It's some sort of like bomber run game, yeah.
It's Missile Command, a game that was inspired by the creator, like, looking out across the bay at the rest of California and thinking, man, if there were missiles flying towards those cities, how long could you, like, shoot them down? Nukes, you know.
Yeah. I also did kind of find it silly goofy that the T-1000's badge number was the year the first one came out, which was kind of cool.
That's cute.
Or someone's badge number of one of the many murdered cops in this movie is the year of the first movie.
It's my point, I guess, was that, like, you know, the first two movies, the first one more than the third one, than the second one, still have a bit of that, like, horror, you know, undercurrent.
Yeah.
The T-1000 is a very horror focused character, you know?
Yeah, he makes great use of the fact that he is an infiltrator entity. He is like I said, he's a shark in a room full of people.
Mm-hmm. Him doing the, like, finger wagging right after he gets shot a bunch is very funny.
Yeah,
He's Sonic.
He does have to go fast.
the number of times that he like just like gets impaled and just like moves his body slightly to unimpale himself.
The pacing gets a little wonky when they get to the Steel Foundry, because they kind of have the same fight like 3 times in a row.
Yeah, but like considering how like little they've used the T-1000 and they're finally gonna give us a Terminator scrap,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that, actually. If that scene makes me a 14-year-old boy, and I'm like, fuck it, I came here to see robots fight, and goddamn, those robots do be fighting!
Right, I was gonna say, like, the scene where Arnold, like, throws him into a wall, and he just, like, shifts his body so he's facing the other way, that shit owns. That shit owns. I'm sorry, I am not immune to shit being cool sometimes.
Yeah, that and, like, the fucking... Oh, God. Back to the robot self-sacrifice scene. The cut in of, like, the screens going red and then blinking off to, like, finally confirm he's dead. Because they already did the fake-out death ending twice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, that's good. That's a good move.
Yeah, I think that's about all of my thoughts on Terminator 2. Krissy, do you have any last additional things you want to discuss?
And that includes just, like, a rundown of all of your notes so you can tell me to shut the fuck up.
Well, I don't think I'm physically capable of taking notes. Let me try to put together some thoughts if you give me one moment.
Take your time.
I mean,
You don't have to have anything major to say, you know.
no.
I'm just asking if there's any points that you want to make that I didn't...
You caught me a little off guard. I didn't have anything prepared to say.
Okay. That's fine.
You can loop back to me.
River, any last thoughts you want to share?
If this movie is the embodiment of, like, yeah, everyone says it's good, and then you're like, it can't be that good, and then you watch it and it's like, yeah, it is that good. Does that make James Cameron Shakespeare?
It doesn't make him not Shakespeare, but it doesn't make him Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I think the modern Shakespeare is going to actually be the Coen brothers.
That's true.
God, you're probably right.
I'm always right, except when I'm wrong.
And said Llewyn Davis, my beloved.
I'm always right when Ellie's wrong.
Correct, she is. I mean, you must not be right very often.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. If the Coens are Shakespeare, does that make Wes Marlowe?
I think the metaphor is starting to break down a little bit.
Maybe a little.
Yeah, I think that... my point is simply that the Coen brothers, we haven't gotten a chance to cover on here, but we will someday soon, are just like, you hear, oh yeah, No Country for Old Men's that good, and then you watch and like, fuck. It is actually just that fucking good.
Yeah. And even, like, their weirder stuff, like, it takes swings, and you're just like, yeah, man, fucking go for it.
Unfortunately, this is an example of what I was talking about earlier, Krissy, when I was saying that I'm sick in the head. Unfortunately, their weirder shit is actually my favorite stuff.
Oh, well, naturally.
I mean, yeah, that tracks for who you are as a person.
I don't know if you've encountered it on any of the other pods, but I think it's Sam's and Jasmine's have the Ellie what the fuck scale. on how much a movie is going to cause everyone on to go, Ellie, what the fuck?
No.
None of you have gotten close to a 10 yet. Go ahead.
Well, we gotta get into the 2010s for that.
Hmm.
Kind of go a bit off the edge after 2015.
You know, I was just looking at the at my notes, and I think the note that I want to end on is the line, we're not going to make it, people, in 2025 it's a line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got 4 years to beat off the machine apocalypse. Can we do it?
We're beating machines off?
Well, we were already doing that 5 years ago.
Oh my god.
Sorry, River. Wait, that is the KDO? I need to stop. I need to stop.
I think this is like the third time we've ended one of your episodes on a dirty joke that I have teed up for you.
You didn't tee that one up. I went walking for it. I hunted that dirty joke down. River, do you have anything you want to plug before I make it worse?
Yeah, sure, I can plug things. You can find me on Blue Sky at Dreams Rebel. You can find me on my own website at blog.filmland.online, where I'm trying to do the Great MC rewatch, though Thor did temporarily get me, so I have to get back to that. And you can find me as the host of the podcast, The Straights Aren't All Right, a podcast where I gather a bunch of queers together, make them watch straight rom-coms, and try to answer the question, are the straights, okay? The next episode should be up by the time this episode is out, so, it is the Santa Claus 2, an absolute horror trip of a movie. And you can find that wherever pods are cast or on Blue Sky at aren'tallrightpodcom.
Krissy, do you have anything you would like to plug? And I'm sorry if we talked over you a bit in this episode.
No, you're fine. You can find me nowhere. I'm unknowable. No, I have nothing to plug.
Krissy, I think that you might be the wisest of all of us.
God, I wish that were me.
I hope we'll all meet again in the next pod, The Search for More Money.
As always, you can find me, Ellie, on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedos with dashes between the words. You can find me on Blue Sky, Medium, and Letterboxd at LSR42. And you can find this podcast on Blue Sky at Biggest Night Pod. We are available on both Spotify and YouTube, and if you follow us on YouTube, be sure to give us a subscribe, maybe like and comment on the video so that you can tell me which parts you like and which parts you don't. And thank you to both River and Krissy for joining me today. But, I decided we needed to get pretty far away from sci-fi action film from the 90s. So for our next movie, we are going to be covering the 2012 Joe Wright adaptation of Anna Karenina.
An absolute bug nuts pitch of a movie that is apparently, I don't know if it's my Instagram feed or if it's like the general internet at large is suddenly getting real fucking horny about Aaron Taylor Johnson again. It does that in cycles.
They ever stopped?
I don't get it. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't get Aaron Taylor Johnson.
I wish I could explain it. Unfortunately, man rewrote my brain chemistry somewhere in my preteen years, and it was game fucking over.
Well, I guess we're gonna find out more about that next time because River is joining me again, and we'll see you there.